a footed vessel. He's going to demonstrate about footed vessels.
Okay, thanks for having me tonight. It's been 15 months since I was here the last time. Some of you might remember that. And it's a good time. I didn't turn much at all in 2016. It was sort of an off year for me. I was doing other things. I had sort of actually got to the point where I was sort of satisfied with what I was making, and I thought, well, just to keep making more of those, I don't want to do that. So I did other things. But I did want to tell you that I turned a lot of things for this particular presentation, and I brought half with me, partially because I wanted to show you this. I have trouble with this part right down in here, getting it thin enough. Often what I wind up doing is chickening out or not quite figuring out how to get that thin enough down there in the bottom. And so every once in a while, I cut one in half, or I pick it. I don't often have to cut one in half. It just does it. But then it begins to show what it is. So I've been concentrating lately on getting that inside lower curve to be not as thick as the rest of it, but to get a uniform through that. One of the problems I had with that is everybody a lot of the people that teach you want you to use their bowl gouge. And the problem is the bowl gouges, like the ones that with the Irish grind or the like that, can't make that curve. And so you need something else. So I use scrapers. I also have a large bowl gouge that has a steeper angle to it. But another trick to do that is to get in there. See, here's a bowl gouge, and see, I've put a secondary bevel here. So that means that lower, what happens when getting in here is that if you don't have that other bevel like that, it gets caught. It can't make the curve. So I have that sort of bevel on most all of my bowl gouges now, and I can make that curve, or I use a large round nose scraper. But anyways, I'm pretty pleased with that, and that's my half bowl. Now, as long as I have this out, I was going to share a few tips with you. Anybody ever use up one of these things?
Yeah.
What do you do with it? You use it up.
I got them sitting around. But anyway.
Well, I got a use for it.
I got 3 of them.
You know, every once in a while, the angle on my bowl gouges gets out of whack. It doesn't isn't where I want it to be. And so what I'm going to suggest is that you do what I do, is to use this old bowl gouge, knock the handle off if you want to, and if you've got a grind that you think you really want to keep, make a model of it, a template of it like this, and then put it in your Wolverine holder, put it on your, get it laid on your grinder the way you want it, and then you can reproduce that. I have to do that every once in a while, and that's a good use for these old things. And I have a set of these for both, this one's set for the Ellsworth 85. This is a good one for getting inside the bowl because you can see how steep it is. But anyway, so I've got that for a couple different bowl gouges, angles, and also for my spindle gouges. So
may I say that's a rookie mistake. I've made plenty of them, but you don't need to take that much off whenever you're grinding a bowl or grinding your gouge. So that it doesn't necessarily have to go that short. Take it easy on it. What I'm trying to say.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well,
what's the rookie mistake?
Grinding too much on it. Now you are talking about the length, right?
What?
Give me this. That was about out of here, wasn't it?
It was out here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just you just grind. You don't need to grind so much. That's all I'm saying. Especially with CBN wheels, just ease it.
How long have you been turning?
Oh, I don't know. 11 years.
I don't understand what he's saying. Because
Nobody else does neither.
after years it goes away.
Well, after many, yeah. Well,
I mean, I've been turning 10 years.
But I used to. What I'm trying to say, when I first started, I'd grind the heck out of it. That's what I'm trying to. And then it would really go short. I haven't had to go short for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Instead of taking off 30,000, he wants you to take off 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, irregardless, I'm just saying if you want to have a model for what it is to get it back right, otherwise you have to go with your calipers or your angle gun to do that. So anyways, that's just one tip. One of the other things I made, can I help you? Anyways, I've seen these for years. They're in the catalog, and so finally I made one of these myself. For years I've used these, a whole series of those. Does everybody use those? To sort of lay out your thing? Well, sometimes when I'm trying to lay out relative where the best grain is, I can't see through the plywood, and so I made one of these, and I made it by just having this little piece of plexiglass and taking my compass and then scratching that thing, so I don't have to pay the big bucks for craft supplies or someplace like that. So you understand? So you put your pencil in the center there, and then just the point, you just rotate it around, and then you drill holes. See, I've got holes drilled in between each of the lines too, and so that means I can lay that on. Last month, I got a nice piece of ash here that Rod brought in, but it was a big rectangular piece, and so I was able to lay that on there and get my round of it off, and then cut the rest of it off and get another bowl out of that. So often I can use that. So that's another just cheap thing. And the reason I'm sort of sharing some of these tips, because last week Bill Caldwell told us about keeping his chucks in this. So at $2.50 a piece, I went over to Harbor Freight and bought these. And I mentioned that to Jim, and he says, "Did you hang them on the wall?" And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. So I didn't have a piece of metal on the wall, so I put these on the side of my cabinet. So I've got about a dozen of these, and I put that on the side of my cabinet. So if I need one of these, I just look there, and it's there. But I just think that was a good tip, and so I thought I'd share some other tips.
Good tip, yeah.
Some other tips with you. I suppose you all have done this forever. I mean, the first thing I learned how to do when I was taught how to do spindles was to make one of these, this 245-degree angles, to put your spindle in there to hold it. Well, I always had, the original ones I had just had this much, and so the end was hanging off. Well, I got smart when I had to make a new one, and I just said, well, let's support both ends. And so this is what I use to cut spindles to length on my bandsaw. Then this goes in the slot, and so, and I can just go through, cut through with that, and it doesn't flop off the end. Sometimes it would flop off the end and get caught. Tip? Easy.
When you use that, you want to make sure that what you're cutting doesn't touch the bottom bowl, the bottom board. It's supposed to be supported on each of the 45s, not on the bottom. If you do it on the bottom, then it can spin.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Screw up your blade.
Well, you can put these as close as you want to. Most all my stuff is
fairly large, so yeah.
Large, that sort of stuff. All right, so that was another thing. So the plexiglass, the holder, and the gauge. If anybody needs one of these, we're auctioning this off, or I'm selling this for $5 for the club. Anybody need it?
I'll take it.
Oh, you don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
I've got a complete set of those, so. And there's just a little bit left in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight the topic is footed vessels. Now, when I told somebody I was going to talk about footed vessels, they say you're going to put feet on a boat. I said no, because it's not a boat; it's a vessel. That is, a vessel is something that holds a liquid. And all my examples tonight are vessels, except for one. So we're going to put a foot on a vessel. So a vessel is any hollow container that's used to hold liquids, such as a bowl or a cask or something like a cask, like that. And a foot, to define a foot is a secondary mass that sits underneath a primary mass. That is, it's something that a bowl sits on. And so that's just what a foot is. Not too exciting, but I think it's sort of fun. Now, why do you think we want to put a foot on a bowl? This is a question to you. Answer the question. Yes?
More character.
For more character. That's right. Interest. What else? Why might we...
Appearance. Oh, well, character, appearance, I guess, same difference.
Character appearance.
Doesn't run away.
Huh? So it wouldn't run away.
That's what it stands
Huh?
out.
Stabilizes it. Yeah, stabilizes it. That's good. It adds interest. It raises it up to show it better. If it was just this much sitting there, or this much sitting there, that's sort of okay, but this raises it up and shows it. I'm telling you, what I'm going to tell you here tonight, in terms of talking about feet on bowls, is not going to make you any money in this market. I do it because it's fun to do, and it challenged me to get it done. Now, there's several different ways to do that. This is my only example that's not a vessel. I made this to be a pizza platter. And so, two things. One is, it's got a hollow base, so it's light, and if you were doing wetter wood on it, it would dry quickly. But anyway, so it's very light. Now, I thought, first of all, I would just make that, and it's just made out of poplar. I thought, well, I'll stain it dark, and I thought, why would I want to do that for a pizza platter? So this goes into your table. You know what I mean? A pizza platter goes in the middle of your table, so you don't have that big platter laying there. You can put that on there. So, anyways, 2 pieces. Turned this. This has a spigot on it with a recess. Just glued it in. So that's taking a platter, which I think Jim taught us how to make, and putting a foot on it, and you get a different kind of thing. My son got married to a very nice young woman about 5 or 6 years ago, and she wanted to have cheesecake for her wedding cakes at the reception. So she had 3 different kinds of cheesecake that she wanted, and she asked me to make stands for them. So when you're making a stand like this, it can either be 2 pieces or it can be 3 pieces with a base under here. So I made her, she's an architect, so I would make up a little version of that. I'd take a picture of it and say, how's that for the curves? But anyways, that had a top, a middle, and a base, 3 pieces. And then I sent them out, and my son, when it got there, because they live in Oregon, he glued them together. And so at the wedding reception, we had 3 nice footed platters to show off the things. And they were a big hit. People were going, oh, that's pretty neat. And they were just painted black. Speaking of paint, this is sort of an interesting thing. See the red in it? The red was an aniline dye. You know what that means? A water-based dye. So I put that on it, and so it was sort of reddish. And then here in the center, I sanded it off in the center, and then I put on a water-based sort of a greenish paint that I got as a little sample at loads. You know how they have the little samples? Anyways, so that meant when you put water base on water base, it bleeds through. If you put a water base paint on something, you can't put a water base cover on it and not have it bleed through. If you put water base paint on something or water base finish, then you have to put a non-water base finish over the top of it. So anyway, so it bled through and I got this sort of effect. Now you may or may not like this, but it's sort of fun and just a little bit different. And then I put a polyurethane coat over the top of it, which would seal the water-based paint. Questions? Yes?
Just one coat of poly?
Oh, that's probably a couple coats of spray.
Okay.
It's a spray poly.
It's a spray, okay.
That sort of stuff. So that's one. So that's one type of foot. The feet. This is a type of foot where a bowl sits on top of it, raises it up, so it's just there. The cool kind of thing, if you're going to do this, is to try to make the curve of the bowl look like it's going through the foot. Does it do it? So if you continue that curve, it should look like it's going through the foot. Not a big deal, but it's a fun thing to try to do. This one has a little cove in it. You can put different kinds of things, make different kind of stuff. Look it up for a book. So this is one where the bowl sits on top of the thing. The other kind of foot is like this, where the foot is actually part of the bowl, where you can't tell really where the foot stops and the bowl starts. All right? Now, the other thing about a foot in a bowl, if you're thinking about this, is that by themselves, it wouldn't make sense. Wouldn't look right. If you cut this off and laid it out there, it wouldn't make sense. And you left the bowl there, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't look quite right. So it only looks right when they fit together. So there'll be a test. How many kinds of feet are there? 2. One that the bowl sits on top of it, and the other where it's part of the bowl. Now, I usually turn the foot last. And sometimes, okay, so we've talked about these kinds of bowls. This is also a footed vessel. Your goblets. Anybody turn goblets? Yeah. Now, the way I like to turn a goblet is to do something like this. Put it between centers, get it round. What do you turn first when you're doing a goblet?
Inside.
Turn the inside first. Leave the rest of this the way it is. Turn the inside first, then put your stem on it. Now, at this point, see, I basically, after I've done it between centers, I can do it with one chucking. Now, at this point, I can do several kinds of things. This could actually wind up being a scoop, because I could go come here, make the handle, and cut this off. I can make it look like this, or I can take and turn this down and make a base like one of these. So that's another footed vessel. Bowls and goblets. Questions about turning goblets? The pattern and that. The natural edge bowls, these I turned, and it looks sort of funny because I turned these the same way as this. That is, I'll put these between centers, make it so it has a spigot for my chuck, but it has a big lumpy piece like that. I turned this one this morning, and when I took it out, it when I had finished doing this part of it and took it out, this had a big lump here like this because my chuck had set against that. I had left a secondary foot on it. And here's an example. I was going to try to guts it with a natural edge wet piece, but I figured by the time I got here tonight it would have dried enough to do that. So when we're doing a foot, one of the things that we do is this, of course, is between centers, and I turn my chucking thing, and then I have sort of a false foot here because the chuck has to fit against something. Okay? So at this point, I can do several different things with this particular bowl. One of it is I could just turn this off and I've got this much of a bowl. And that's often what we might do. Or I can make this into something different. What should I do? Well, let's take a look. Oh, first of all, I forgot my big thing. How do you make a bowl? Does this bowl look like it needs a foot?
No.
Somebody said yes. Who said yes? Well, of course it needs a foot. And I was following my thing so bad. But anyways, so the first thing you have to do is find a foot. A 12E would do that. But I blew that. That was my big thing. It was supposed to come earlier. I found this foot in an antique shop at down on the Eastern Shore last summer, and I thought, well, I've got to do that in February. That might make a funny thing to do. Pardon?
Comedy's hard.
If you do.
Look for else.
Anyways, so that's just a little knob foot on the top of a little triangular thing. Have we taught people how to do triangular bowls yet? We'll do that. We'll do that sometime. But anyways, that's a triangular bowl. Okay, so what do I want to do is show you how I get this to this point. Now, if and I want to tell you one of the important things about rechucking is to make sure you always have your center point. Make sure that center point is still there when you go to rechuck. Because when you go to do it, you put that center point in the center of your live center, and then when you put it up against there, it just goes in very nicely most of the time, and centers evenly. One of the ways ooh, nice. Well, I know. I'm not ready yet. What I'm doing is checking. Good safety thing. Thank you. What I'm doing is I'm putting my finger against my rest and rotating that against that. And if I feel it turn all the way around, then I know it's centered. If it's not, then I'd give it a little bump and get it so it's down. Oh shoot, well, I'll be a little bit careful. Usually I have a shield up here in front. So if I turn that on, not too bad. Now, I spent a lot of time learning how to use a bowl gouge. And I'm very proud of using a bowl gouge. But they came up with these carbide cutters, and I have two big ones that were sort of homemade that we mounted on. I'm not going to tell you where I got them, but these are two small ones that would do that. And I found it's very handy to use these on bowls like this, because I found that when I was using, maybe it's just me, but that's okay. When I was using my bowl gouge, I was putting a lot of pressure, it gets pretty thin, and I was putting a lot of pressure on it, and I would break off the part being held in the nub being held in the chuck. Whereas when I use these, my force is going straight in rather than pulling against it. And so I've been using these to sort of finish them. A lot of people complain that it doesn't put a good finish on this, but if you take it slow, if you turn fast and take them slow, I mean, I start with 180 on this, if you feel that. I mean, these are right off this was off the lathe this morning. And so, and that's the other, so that's a good thing to do. So anyways, we can do several different things with this at this point.
You know, the stem's too long, the down piece is too long on the,
You just got that, right?
it's incorrect.
No, this is mine.
Oh,
that's
okay,
yours.
it's incorrect for this lathe. Is that down here, guys, or where is it? It should be down here.
Oh. If you ever bought and we're going to apparently buy some of these, but this is a robust rest. It's really neat because you can hold your hand against here like this, or you can use it to guide. But this is a stainless steel rod, whereas most of these rests are not hardened like that, and you have to wind up refiling them from time to time because they get nicks in it. But robust, I think, has the best kind of thing. As I understand, we're going to buy one or two or three. I have 4 of these, but for the 2 different lathes, I think I have 5 of these. You've seen this trick before. I think Jim's talked about it. Anyways, when you use these things, it's supposed to be at mid-height and level. In fact, I have the 2 bigger ones on it. I have actual levels laying on top of them for when I teach people how to keep it level. This is a bad design. Anyways, so we're going to put this in here. Nah. So did you get what this is for? This is so that the height, the right, I have these for the right height. So this, if I have this on here, I know that the right height for this is the right there for that. It saves up and down a lot, and you can make them out of metal, whatever you want, but do that. All right.
You need to cut, you need to lock your...
Yeah. A little bit, we don't care. I turn nothing without my helmet. Shoot. I've had every kind of piece blow up. Between centers, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. And I regularly take them in the head. And there's even marks in my ceiling. So I always encourage people to always use these. Anyways, so let's see what we can do here. There's several ways we can go. We can make it look like this, or we can put a different kind of foot on it. So let's just... You know what these are? These are carbide. And the reason I didn't use them for a long time was that I wasn't willing to pay the Easy Woods price for the cutter. But since some of the good people here also do this and showed me where else to get them from Captain Eddie's and some other places, I now can do that. So can you see that we now have a foot on it? But we can also make that a little bit different. We can reverse that curve out by putting a little cove in there. And so we got a little different shape. Can you see that? Or do you have detail? Do y'all have a detail gouge? A detail gouge. I have. This is a 3/8 inch spindle gouge, but see how that narrow point it has on it? My regular 3/8 inch has a rounded, more traditional round point. But you can do lots of neat things with this detail gouge. So we can put a little ring around there. So that's another version of waiting to do that. And that wouldn't look too bad either. That would add some interest to it. There's a different kind that we can have on it. Not done yet. Okay, we're sort of getting down to one of these. So that could be like that. Or we can go back in here. And what I'd like to do is to sort of make a little curve down here at the bottom. Too bad. We're not done. We'll do a couple more things. I wanted to show you this particular. Can you see this? You know what makes this sort of interesting is this little curve. yeah, this is nice, but this little curve puts another little, I put a foot on a foot. So it sort of gives it a little different look. So we can do all kinds of things like this, and we don't have to worry about. Now, I don't worry about the foot until the last bit, the way I do it with leaving a lump onto the bottom like this, because things happen. You find out the bowl isn't going to be this kind of shape you wanted, that there's a flaw in it and things like that. So if you leave a base on it and then come back and do your bowl, you're going to have a better chance of having something that's that I think that this ought to be a little more. Yeah, what's the danger here? One more cut, right? One more cut. One more. Now, if I had my regular, I do have my regular. I just want to show you how to put it. See, we've still got our bottom that needs worked on. Where's that go? Down here. See, my point is a little smaller here, so I can get into it with my yeah, that business about doing one more thing. When I was making chairs, learning how to make chairs, one of our things was better is the enemy of good. When I tell my engineer friends that, they get sort of upset about that. Because they go for perfection. Now, what I want to do is to make a little indentation, and this is again where your detail gouge comes in handy. So I'm just going to go in here, and for a safety thing, I always turn I don't turn my machine off when I'm doing adjustments. I turn the speed off. One thing, it slows it down faster when you use the speed control. You're not waiting for it to wind down. And the other thing is, once you get in the habit of that, that means you always have to come in and turn it back up to the. Just in here. And we always want to put a little indentation. And so there we have an indentation, and then I would take and either sand that out or use my chisel to take that out. So anyways, there's a bowl with a foot. I think it looks okay. You could have had different kinds of feet on it. We showed you those. So how many different kinds of feet are there? Two. Where it sits on top, or whereas there's a part of it. How many different, if we're having a raised platter, we can make that either in how many pieces? 3 or 2, okay? So anyways, I would encourage you to come on up and feel any of this. This by accident I think this is one of the best bowls I've ever done, just because I like how thin it is, and I like how the base is. It really is nice. Anyways, again, a minimal foot, big foot. Any questions about feet? Oh, come on. What's the question, Robert?
Just curious if these are just decorative or do you put food in
Actually
them?
used.
You use them.
Well, as I said, you're not going to make any money off any of this. Because people around here want to buy utilitarian. They want to buy popcorn bowls. I'm afraid. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on that. In another market, they would sell, and I've sold some of these like this. I mean, these are decorative. Like at Christmas, you can put balls, Christmas balls and that sort of stuff. But they're really meant to be art pieces. And I do turn utilitarian bowls, but no, these are mostly art pieces. Now, these I finally got a natural edge bowl to stay on, although because of things to. Now, like something like this can be. Pat said, "Well, I want that to put my earrings in when I take them off." You also, if you had a little different base on it, you could make it a candle holder for the little votive candles. Some people wind up getting requests to make goblets for weddings, and you can just do it with cover them with polyurethane, and then you can drink wine out of them if you want to. All right. No other questions? Really? Come on, I have
done a real good job.
I have answers that I haven't even used yet.
Well, like you, I was struggling with the decision whether to buy the carbide or just continue buying regular.
I think it depends. If you're a new turner and you don't know how much you're going to do, I think this is not a bad way to go because you don't have to invest in a $100 CBN wheel, a grinder, the Wolverine sharpening system, and these are bigger ones too. I mean, the other ones I have are bigger. There's 4 different. There's the round. This is a radius. There are 2 radius, so it's not straight as trough. There's a square, and there is a triangle. I'm sorry?
Diamond, I would call it.
Yeah, diamond, yeah. I don't have that. But I use these when necessary. I use scrapers when necessary. Whatever works. I'm not a purist in saying this is the only. I don't sell tools with my name on it. And usually when you sell, then they say that's the only way to do that. So I think it's not a bad thing. And if these things are like $17 a piece, I think, from Easy Woods, but you can buy them from Captain Eddie online, or what's the other one I just bought? Burke's. Anyways, so it comes down to being fairly reasonable. I think and some of my gouges are $100.
Yes.
$100 a piece, and and I have a bunch of them over the last 10 or so years.
And the resharpening of them is basically a simple task of just using a diamond
Yeah.
file part.
They do this. The other thing I don't like about it is I occasionally drop things.
Me too.
Things fall off, and they do dent and chip. All right. Well, I thank you for your attention, and I would say come on up while we're cleaning up. Feel the wood. It's not just to look at; it's to feel and see what it is you want. If you have any questions, please come up. Anyways, thank you so much.